Hi, I'm Mark Lamont. I'm a professional service engineer with Jigsaw 24.
And I'm Jack Hollister. I'm a Apple Enterprise Solutions architect, but in layman terms, I'm similar to a Jamf FT, work in the pre-sales department, sort of design the dream and pass it off to professional services to then not do what I say and do it properly.
To do what we want to do.
Yeah, so we work for Jigsaw 24, as explained. We're Apple Enterprise reseller, and we work with a lot of from small, medium business, education, and enterprise in sunny Britain. So the reason we're talking about this is that we found a consistent theme in our engagements when we're speaking to clients. Like, we all know about the whole zero touch and the out-of-the-box experience, and like that's great. But when you go into a client and they say, "Yeah, we've got 700 devices, not in DEP, but we really like what you said before. Can you make that happen?" So that sort of was the catalyst for putting this all together. So, are you an organisation with devices of varying OS levels? You've got some in Business Manager, School Manager, some enrolled in MDM, and more likely lots that are not. And you need to achieve a common build across your entire estate, and also how do you have a consistent reprovisioning method for both your DEP devices and your non-DEP devices. So first up is the classic zero-touch DEP build. And so for this, what we're doing today is going to be with Jamf Connect, login, and Nomad, but you can use this if you're using a zero identity or classic Active Directory or any of the other Jamf Connect supported ones. And this process, there is no user account created during the build. This is for achieving that consistent estate before the user logs in. So first of all,
Jack, let me just say, if anybody's expecting an easy ride, this is a lot of scripts, a lot of policies, a lot of smart groups. So knuckle down for this one. It's a training session.
And just a note to the AV guys, the speaker notes aren't up there, so I think we're going to have to improvise.
We're having to wing a lot of this because the speaker notes aren't showing.
We're going to improvise the next 70 slides. So first of all, custom package. To begin with, it's going to be containing the Nomad login application. It's going to have a mobile config with all the settings within it, and then a package containing the graphics to make it all look nice for the end user.
It would be nice, please, yes.
Yeah.
Because we've got lots of them.
There we go.
Oh, cheers.
Yeah, improvising may not be good considering the party was last night, and I'm sure it's still in our system. So the package needs a post-install script, and it's going to be, so it installs the profile to configure Nomad, installs the graphics, and then installs the Nomad application. However, at the end of it, obviously there's scripts on the screen, but if you look at this, we'll upload the slides after, so don't worry about trying to take a photo of a tiny text. But yeah, it runs an auth changer to modify the login window, and then it tells Nomad to use the user input method, then followed by the notify method. And the user input will allow data entry during the build process. So yeah, we'll just run through to make it a little bit bigger. I'm sure you can all see it at the back. So we've got our package. We're going to be passing it to a pre-stage. And I'm sure you're all familiar with this process. We're just going to be uploading that package to Jamf, attaching it to the pre-stage as an enrolment package. And we're going to be skipping account creation because, as I said before, there's going to be no local user accounts done through this build process. However, if you do need to leverage a local admin account, you can add this as part of the process. So now we've got a package, we've got a pre-stage. Now we have a build policy that's going to kick everything off. One thing to note is that we're going to be using one policy for both the non-DEP and DEP methods. So it's 2 points of entry, but one consistent build that they both run through. So that it runs on enrolment, it's on ongoing frequency, And that's what allows us to trigger it for both the DP and non-DP. And it's only one script as well. So easier from an administration point of view. So what does it do? You can read that, right? So yeah.
So we're off now.
So just to check, before I click, this will do the zoom in thing, won't it? Or do we not do that on this one?
There's no clicks, mate.
No clicks on this one. Okay, so it'll wait until any required input has been made, which is why our first trigger was the Nomad user input method. Once that data has been received, it will then run any build policies using custom triggers, and then it will use the notify method to then display the progress to the end user, and then it will change our login window type back to the login. So let's break this down. So first of all, waiting for user input to be completed. Just straightforward, just waiting for the user to click on. For this, we're going to be prompting for a user role. So whether the device is, say, going to be used as a shared device, if it's in a lab, or if it's a member of staff device, it's going to be one-to-one. The second part now, we're going to be notifying the user progress, and then we're going to be echoing out the commands as the custom triggers are going through, so that way you know how far you are down the builds. We're not going to be covering how all these commands work today, as I'm sure it's something we've all done.
If you use dep notify, they're the same commands, so.
I'm sure we've done it a million times. So at the third part, we're going to be displaying progress on the notify screen and then send that trigger to run a policy. This could be one or many, but for this demo, we're just going to be using one. And you can change the graphics as the policies go on, but for this, it's just going to be just the Jamf Connect app that's installed. The fourth part, we're going to be resetting the login window back to Jamf Connect login rather than using the Nomad application. We're going to be setting this to back to Azure, but if you're bound to AD, you can just use reset to use the native Mac login experience. All right, movie time. So hopefully this will play. There we go. Right, so standard device enrollment screen. And once we've got past this, now we've got the user input methods. This is where we're saying, is it a shared device? Is it a single user? And then based on that, you can then obviously leverage different builds. So again, so we've got Nomad login coming up. To note that obviously the user hasn't logged in at this point. We're able to get those policies running, installing applications, installing security preferences, and that way you know that when the user comes to Jamf Connect login, that it's going to be a compliant device. So as we log in with our Azure identity, we enter our password. We don't have to worry about entering the wrong one, as we're not mad enough to do a live one today.
That's right. Most definitely not.
And there we go. The account's created, the user's logged in, and all the applications that are required as a baseliner are on the device. So it's a simple build, ideal for central building and shipping, or if you're just running and gunning around your labs, reprovisioning your devices.
So now, we want to replicate that with machines that aren't in DUP, which is the fun bit. So, I put this slide in, and Jamf said nobody's going to understand what that means, and so I put the definition in, basically. So, I'm sure everybody here has done DUP builds or seen them done like that in the past. So let's move on to the next bit, which is a lot more complicated. So, you've got devices that aren't in DUP, but you want to make them the same as your devices you're building that are in DUP, or you want to get everything imported into Jamf from other MDMs or from systems, you've just got them lying around in cupboards or whatever. So you want it to be the same kind of method as you were going to use on your other machines. That's the important thing about this. So there's a few stages, 4 stages in fact, it says on my notes here. So the first stage is not clicking. Is to wipe and install a clean Mac OS. Second stage is to install a few extra packages we need to make this work. Who went to what was that guy's name?
Misha at Pro.
Yeah, who went to Misha's? Right, so you'll find a lot of crossover between what he's doing and what we're doing, to be fair, because it's the same thing to do. Then we've got to enroll it in Jamf, and then we've got to kick off the same build, okay? Now this is all pretty much automated, so that shouldn't be an issue, he says. So let's get started. So the first thing you need to do, of course, is to wipe the machine in our workflow, to get them all clean, get them up to the right OS, and move them on. So to do that, I'm going to use Mac deploy stick, which of course, if you were in the Apple presentation the other day, they mentioned, so at least we know we're doing it the right way, that's just good. And with Mac deploy stick, we're going to put the nice OS on and install our extra packages, because there's that install package command line argument you can use with the installer. It doesn't work, what is it? Right. So we need a couple of packages for this. So as you can see, that package is fairly similar to the package Jack just told you about for DEP pre-stage. So we've got Nomad, the same as the DEP one. We've got the profile, which is the same as the DEP one. We've got a quick add package, and we've got a control script that controls all of the processes about to happen. And there's a launch daemon right at the bottom which we install, which is needed to kick the script off when the machine starts. There's a post-install script in the package, which actually loads that launch daemon, because the way this all works is when the OS is installed, after that's set up, then the extra packages are installed and there's no more restarts. So if you don't actually load the launch daemon, it's not running, so you just run through a normal setup wizard. And then you get a shock the next time you restart the machine. So, when I built this demonstration, in the quick add package, I actually created a management user that was different to the one that we've used normally, because I used it to scope things in smart groups, and it's also handy for reporting things. It's not compulsory, you don't have to do it, but I just found it easier in my head to work that way, basically. Okay, the second package is the graphics, which was mentioned in the other package. I couldn't get them to work all bundled in the same package, so I just put them as a separate package and it works fine. I only used two packages on that demo you saw. One's a logo, one's a background wallpaper. Okay, so the control script. Lots of scripty shots coming up, hang on. So the first thing that this script needs to do when the machine starts is to wait for the notorious MB setup user to be active. Because when that user's active, we know the setup screens have started. So as soon as that happens, the script can then move on to install Nomad. So again, we install Nomad, we run auth changer, exactly the same as before, using the user input method followed by the notify method. Someone's going to ask why we're using Nomad. Go on, why are we using Nomad when we're putting... Because Jamf Connect does not have the user input method that Nomad has. It only has the notify window. So there you go. So the next thing is we want to make sure Jamf's contactable before we move on. No point trying to run the quick add if there's no network. Now the interesting thing about this is, of course, you would code this obviously to point to your Jamf cloud. Excuse me, I need a drink. A lot of talking. The thing about building this, if you build this on a Wi-Fi, this will wait until you've entered the Wi-Fi credentials, the same as doing a DP build. If you plug into Ethernet on the VM, it just shoots through, as you'll see on my video. And the last bit, we just create Apple setup done, kill the login window, so we switch back to Nomad. So I'm kind of explaining the previous build on here, to be fair. And then we do the start build, which is just a simple command to run the quick add. And so we've swapped the login window to Nomad. The choice screens come up. It's sitting there waiting. The quick add package runs in the background. The enrollment trigger gets fired, and then it all kicks off. Now there's a difference, of course. We're not using DEP, so we've got user accepted MDM to get on with. So we're now jumping to after the machine's built. And of course, users are going to log in. And we've got to do this. I was talking about the wrong slide, but hey, we'll get on with this, shall we? So we've got to get this accepted by the users. So, of course, how can we force approval? Well, we can't, can we? But we can just nag people to death, okay?
I find a full screen application that blocks the application folders is a surefire way to make your user base very
we're
happy.
not quite that bad. So to do this, there's a few little bits we need to put into Jamf for this. The first one is a smart group, which we're going to use to scope a policy. So we just use user-approved MDM is not yes, okay? That's built into Jamf. There's no fancy stuff needed for that. As you notice, I scoped that to that different management user. Then we've got a policy, which is a pretty simple policy. It runs a script and updates the inventory to after it's worked. Now this script is, this policy, is set to run login and check-in. So as long as the conditions are met that user-approved MDM is not yes, this will just keep jumping up to the user in their face. And what does it do? Well, it's pretty simple. It checks the profile is approved and it runs the user-facing approval screens. It's a pretty simple command, just uses the profiles command, as you can see there. And then we feed that into this case statement. So if the user has approved it in between the inventory being updated, it will just jump out and update the inventory. But if they haven't, then we kick off the notify user to approve. So, no more code shots here. So we launch a notification screen for the user. There's absolute ton of ways to do this. We can use a Jamf helper, we can use dep notify, you could write your own things, and then you can launch self-service, which of course tells them what to do, or you can go directly into preferences, you know. But in the demo that you'll see in a second, we use self-service because it looks nice, basically. And then I also added a little bit at the end, which I'll tell you about in a minute. That slide says no click, but there's loads. Right. So there you go, that's what I've just said. Right, so here's another video. So this is the entire process I spoke about. Is it running? Yes, it is. So we start off, we boot into Recovery Console, and we're going to be running MDS. Anybody else use MDS here? Oh, at least 3, that's good. It's really good. On the build sticks I've built, I've got a DEP wipe and a non-DEP wipe. And the difference between the two is one's got extra packages, one doesn't. So, and of course you can have multiple OS versions, whatever you want. So it's preparing, and you'll notice the install package lines there. No point putting down there, is it? The install package lines as I spoke about yesterday. So that's the 2 extra packages that will be installed after this is wiped. Kind of fast forward quite a lot here. So the OS have been built, so that's just jumped straight through because it detected the network. We make the selection, same as before, as you notice. So the build just sits there and waits. Clicks on with that. In the background, quick add is running, so it does take a little while longer, but not a lot longer. And then when the screens change, the build is kicked in. That's the way I write it, so that the actual text changes to, there's a bit of progress, as you see, like serial numbers and versions have come up because that's in the script. So we're running exactly the same policy that you just saw for the DP build. And here we come, stand by to nag users. Doesn't have to be the user, of course. If you're building a lab for a school or something, you could just go log around with an admin account and just do them all, and job done. But right, so there's the bit of Jamf helper popping up. And then there's kicking off self-service, because there's a setting to make it display that if MDM's not approved. And open the system preferences, approve it, approve, and we're done. So there you go. And you can put all the notifications and stuff you want around that. And my colleague Chris, sat in the front row there, has done a very similar thing for another organisation. He's used dep notify for the prompting screens with little pictures and everything. So you might want to ask him later. So that's the end of that section. So now we go back to Jack while I give my voice a rest.
Similar hair to me this morning. Right. So we've got the devices enrolled, we've got them built. Now what? So we've got the arrays install process, which is great for DEP, but how are we going to have that for non-DEP devices? And if we're going to be, hopefully, onboarding those non-DEP devices as DEP devices, maybe procurement's found the stack of invoices and spent the next 10 days on the phone to Apple getting them back into DEP. We're going to want to be able to move the functionality back to DEP workflow. So policy-driven device reprovisioning, what's required? Now, so Graham Pugh, who's actually presenting at this time.
Downstairs, underneath us.
Underneath us right now. He has an arrays install script that we used for this.
Anyone else seen that, used that? Must have. Yeah, I thought so. That was mentioned yesterday as well.
And as well as that script, we've got a couple of extension attributes, and of course, lots of smart groups and policies. So the arrays install script, what does it do? So there's several download options that can be set. For the case of this demo, we've locked it to 1014. And it will then be able to perform the arrays and install. So the script is being used to download the OS, maintain the downloaded OS, and then perform the arrays. So that way it can, you know that if there's a new release that's come out, the extension attribute is going to be able to check that. So there's no extra administration overhead for us IT lot. There's lots of other functionality within the arrays install script, but we'll let you just ask Graham later on tonight.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So there's two extension attributes we're going to be using for this. First one is the installer valid extension attribute. This is an enhancement to the arrays install script. We're going to be using this with smart groups to make a download policy run. Not downloaded, but run. Sorry.
Shall I talk this one? What I've done is from what I gather, if the installer is the same version or higher than the installed OS, it will work. If it's lower, it won't. So what I've done is I've written an EA that will check if the copy you've got downloaded is valid, basically. If it's not valid, it re-triggers the whole thing using the smart group. So if the idea is to keep the installer downloaded on your machine so you can wipe them anytime. So it's good for offboarding people or for just doing the complete workflow. So you want to keep it so you know it's valid, so it's not going to fail when you press the button to run it, basically. And that's what this does.
So the second extension attribute, for this we need to know if the device is in DEP, and if Apple has a record for that, and point it to an MDM server. The result for this is a yes or no, and then we'll use that to scope in a smart group. So there's a package that's going to be required as part of this, the deploy extras. So we'll look at this as almost like a pre-stage for our non-DEP devices, because the arrays install process will be using this package to get Nomad login triggered, the same as what Mark just went through in the previous video. It sort of captures that Mac deploy stick functionality.
Yeah. It's the same two packages, just deployed but not installed, because, yeah.
So just to note, you don't have to plug in a USB every time you want to rebuild the device. It's only the first time, because this policy and scripts will then make sure that process is always on the device. So you don't have to worry about keeping loads of USB keys. So smart group number 1, is the installer downloaded? Is the device greater than 13.4? So we know that arrays install is going to work. And if you have devices that aren't APFS, then we're going to scope these out. And these groups are common to both workflows, so we don't have to worry about having millions of the same. The second smart group is our non-DEP packages, whether they're required, which looks at does it have a valid installer, and is it DEP capable, which for this we're looking for those that are not. And our third smart group is Two groups for arrays ready. So DEP requires a valid OS installer downloaded. And for a non-DEP, it's going to be looking for the OS installer and that has the extra packages. So that way you're ensuring that your non-DEP devices are not going to try and build when you haven't got that sort of fake pre-stage enrolment package. And this will then make them eligible for the wipe mechanism. So the last group is for when a device has moved from non-DEP to a DEP, when they will then see the scripts that will do this process later on. So back over to Mark.
Back to me. Thank you, Jack. Have we moved on? Yeah, right, so I'm going to do the policies. Right, there we go. Okay, so the first policy is pretty simple. It's to download the OS you want. Now, that's just using the script that we spoke about, Graham's script. There's the options I set up, but we're basically locking this to 10.14, and we're overwriting any previous version of the installer that's there. So that at least with the inventory we've got, so the smart, the EA we've got, we actually keep the version that's there valid. And then there's the deploy extra packages policy. So the package Jack just spoke about, we deploy and update the inventory. Then there's the remove extras package. This is just a simple script. So the device has been moved into DEP by your vendor. It's popped up into Jamf, and of course it's gone back to Apple. So the EA's picked up it's step capable, moves it into the smart group. This runs and just rips the package and the Jamf receipt off, runs an inventory. So it's now back in your DEP workflow. Quite clever, I thought so anyway. And then there's the final script, which is the arrays install policy, which runs the script with the arrays option. Obviously, you can fire this loads of different ways. You can run it from self-service. You could just set it as a policy, scope it to a subnet that happens to be a lab or something, just fire them all out, let them all rebuild overnight, no problem at all. You can build extra bits around it. We've kept this really simple for this demonstration. It's like a framework, basically. There's no video, I'm sorry, but a video of somebody pressing a button in self-service is just totally pointless. But so that's it. That's all the framework you need now. So you've got your devices into Jamf. You can have the OS installers downloading, keeping downloaded, moving devices into DEP. It's just automatic after this. So you can reprovision entire buildings automatically. So let's move on. Nearly there, it says here. So here's a little flow diagram. Pow. So on your left, yeah. So you've got the DEP, everything DEP is in orange, everything non-DEP is in white, right? So you've got out of the box, you've got MDS wipe, because obviously you could have DEP devices you just want to flatten and start again. At the bottom, you've got the MDS wipe for the non-DEP devices. I suppose theoretically you could have them in a box as well. Common build in the middle. So the common build runs on a DEP device, that's it, job done. On a non-DEP device, you've got to do the UAD MDM, and then it's done. And then you're into Jamf, maintaining whatever packages you want. And then, of course, you've got your reboot and install, which takes you back to the common build. And, of course, theoretically, well, not theoretically, actually, if you already had your devices into Jamf, you could still build the mechanism and just start past the dotted line if you wanted to. So, does this work with 10.15? It seems to, because there's a build running with 10.15. We haven't done much testing on it, to be fair. So, as stated at the beginning, of course, we're, what was the word, Jack? Authorized Enterprise Reseller and Jamf Gold Partner or something?
Yeah, so we're an MSP in the UK.
Yeah, so we've actually rolled this out to somewhere. In fact, that was the reason we rolled it out, because they've got lots and lots of non-DEP Macs, starting from various OS levels. And only a few DEP Macs, but we wanted to build them something that they could just keep going with in the future.
Just to note, so where it was waiting for either a shared or single user, we didn't implement it in this part of the demo, but you could have a timeout. So after 60 seconds, if a choice wasn't made, it would default to, say, the lab setting. So that way, if you are the IT guy who's running around in the summer rebuilding your labs, you know that you could just run and gun, because after 60 seconds, it will just default to the lab setting.
It took a bit of work, but yeah, I've got it, so it'll be on my blog eventually. It's just a matter of just re-engineering the way where it works, but it does work fine. So there's a few links you can take pictures of, whatever. The first one is Neil Martin. I don't know, some of you must know Neil Martin. He was the inspiration for a lot of the Nomad stuff. Obviously, 2 Canoes Mac deploy stick. Graham Pugh, who's downstairs, and the last one's my blog. I'll leave that there for a few minutes if you want. Everybody finished? No? Yeah, what are we doing? Well, I'm moving on anyway. And that's it. Oh, right, that's it.
Yeah.
I'll go back if you want. There you go.
So I think we've got some time for some Q&As, or just Qs.
Yeah, you're not necessarily going to get an answer.
You got one over here?
These lights are really bright, aren't they?
I told you.
Hi guys, thanks for that. What do you do when if the Mac has got a Find My Mac enabled? What do you do? Do you have sanity check for that?
This doesn't overcome any of the
No?
technical difficulties. No, this is just for wipe. If you could wipe it, you can wipe it. That's all. We can't overcome that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Can't have been
Other
that good. They're all
questions?
leaving.
Well, first off, just more of an initial comment. A tactic that I use is I had users that I had to get the MDM approval done. What I did was I simply in Jamf Helper, I set the icon, standard size, and then a week later I made it bigger, after that bigger, and just kept going for like a month, so that eventually it just filled the entire screen.
Same principle, different method.
Same idea. And then what we did was, in order to combat our non-dep enrolled Macintoshes, and this was done with some of the help from Jamf Professional Services, but we basically came up with this idea where we have a launch daemon that is set to run every 60 seconds that just looks for the presence of the Jamf binary, because I have some users in my environment that are savvy enough to know that if they kill the binary, they get away from that, and they're non-dep systems. And then a script that basically, the policy that deployed the two of them deployed a copy of the Jamf binary hidden elsewhere, and if the launch daemon sees that the binary is missing, it runs the script, and the script locks a full screen of a Jamf helper window that basically turns into a walk of shame. I didn't tell the help desk how to fix it remotely because I literally wanted the user to walk into the help desk to fix it. But my question essentially is, in regards to the non-dep systems, what is your user base like? Like, do you have admins in your environment? Do you have other, like, is it?
We implement things for other people, so basically it's what they want.
It's
so
a mix of, from users that are very compliant, like say if it's small, medium business and like there's only 10 of them in the office, they're usually more likely to be compliant. When you're dealing with big enterprises, maybe the route to go down is a compliant device is that it's an approved MDM. So if it's not approved, maybe blocking access to something like Outlook or Safari, just so they can't do, like, say, business functionality without it being approved. And then again, it almost becomes like a HR problem than an IT problem if users are trying to defy the gods of IT admin.
Nice, cool, thank you.
It's just a framework, really. It's a framework that people can build on. It works, and you can plug anything else you want onto it afterwards.
Looks like you've got workflows with quick add packages flying around frequently. What happens if a quick add package tries to get installed on a machine that is DEP?
It won't be there, will it? Because all the logic will not let it go on that machine.
So if a device is a DEP device, it's out of scope for the non-DEP workflow which contains the quick add package. So if it is a DEP device, that policy that's installing quick add won't land on the device. But again, you can use the Mac deploy stick if you did want to do that workflow with the flash drive. You can do it for DEP devices.
Hi. Do you actually perform some checks before the first reboot takes place to make sure all apps are in place?
We just leave that to the Mac OS installer. That's standard. We're just using the built-in command lines to install packages.
So is it,
So
That's what you're talking about, the 2 packages, yeah?
But there is no customized enrollment for Mac App Store apps or additional.
We're not
applications?
talking about anything to do with that. We're talking about building the machine entirely. That's it.
so, so if you're deploying Mac App Store apps, obviously VPP apps, they arrive when they arrive because, well, at least with like a policy-driven sort of packaged applications, you can trigger that as a part of the build process, so you know that the device isn't going to reboot till all those policies have been run successfully. You could add in a last check step that looks at, it could be a smart group that checks for each of the receipts for your applications.
You can add what you want into the script. That's just a basic script that we use because it's really extendable. You know, the lines to install a package, well, you can just install, you can have 1 line or 500 lines if you wanted to.
As long as it's ongoing, if it was to fail and the check at the end saw that it failed, you could implement a process to just run those triggers again for any triggers that didn't work.
Yeah, the only important bits on the script we've got is to make sure it's ready to run. I'm talking about the build script here. 1, to make sure the user input's been selected. If you didn't use Nomad and didn't want user selection, you can cut all that bit out anyway. And then it's just a framework. The important bit is to swap the login window at the end, because you don't want that window to keep coming back up, because obviously no one can log in.
We do have some of our equipment with us, so maybe after we could, maybe not do a live demo, but we can just go through.
We've got videos of various different things we've done.
Yeah, we could just log on to our demo instance and show. If anyone wants to see that in person, we can do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Is it time for the Jamf raffle yet?
I got a quick one. Yeah, thanks for the presentation.
Cheers.
I was just wondering why you guys went with deploy stick. What were the advantages over just like a roll your own kind of solution?
Because I'm not good enough to do a roll my own solution. Why would I spend weeks trying to write something somebody else has already done?
Yeah, no, I just wondered if you
That's
did
it.
it for like the ease of use for like, you know, L1 and L2, like support groups and things like that, or if it was, you know, just some advantages I don't know about.
I'm just good at pulling other people's stuff together. If Apple name check it and say it's good enough for me, to be honest.
And I think with a Mac deploy stick, there are options to automate.
Oh, there's loads of options.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so you just plug in the drive, and if you've only got one build workflow, that is what would happen.
Everyone we've given it to has been quite happy with it. You know, people from schools and other places, they like it, and it makes our life easier as well.
Yeah.
And it is so customizable. It's a really good product for the price of nothing.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks.